Blindspot episode 8, Persecute Envoys. I really love this episode because we officially get daylight. We see everything that daylight is and was and maybe, depending on, what happens with Mayfair and Carter. And I love this episode because the flashback was really good. It got really sad at the end because, when it was revealed, it was like, okay, only 3 people knew about this, 1 died. Of course, my first reaction was like, okay, that person was killed because it's this really super secret, crazy thing, which we find out ties into something that's not, well, it's still really bad, it's still, huge, but it wasn't as big as I was thinking. I was thinking, they, killed a bunch of people and did some terrorist type stuff, but they were doing, the wiretapping thing, so I was like, okay, that's not, they killed a buttload of people. If anything, super illegal, not supposed to do that to American citizens, but they were doing that to, save lives and stuff like that, so I was like, okay. Not as bad as I was thinking, where they were, full-on villains killing a ton of people, so I was once I got the actual answer, I was kind of well, that's not that bad, because compared to what I was thinking of before, but it was still a really good flashback, because I thought, it's going to be this crazy thing, and one of the people got killed because they were busted, or just something happened and that person was killed. And so we go through this flashback. We actually find out that Mayfair was with this woman, and they have this close relationship, but the whole time, throughout all the flashbacks, it was never just this is really good. It was always back and forth, this is, one person thinks is good, one person thinks is bad. Carter was kind of just, we gotta do it, we did it now, so I don't want to, go to jail or whatever. So it was mostly Mayfair and her partner, and it was her and her girlfriend kind of going back and forth. Of course, Mayfair was the first one who had to really be convinced that they should do it. So she gets convinced by the two of them. Things are kind of going along, and it's okay, working, but she wasn't using it. She said, I'll go along with it. Then she wasn't using it, and then I think right after that flashback, it skipped. I don't know. We don't know how much time it really skipped, but I would assume it had to have been a couple of months. It had to have been at least half a year, I would say, or maybe even a full year, because just the way that, how they did it tone-wise, it was, of course, the very beginning, and then it was alright, we've been doing this for a while now, but you haven't really implemented it. You said you agreed with us, but you haven't been using it like we have. And then after that, it was kind of reversed, because that was when they were, things were starting to get a little risky. And then Mayfair's well, now I can't stop because, you guys convinced me. We're already, I've started using it officially now, so I can't do that because all these people would get out. And then it was they were officially busted, and then it was kind of the same thing, we're going to get indicted or killed and all this other crazy stuff. And then, of course, it ends very tragically, and it's just man, that's kind of messed up. She killed herself because she was so freaked out about possibly getting caught. And I guess it just makes it even sadder because nothing's happened yet. And that, I would assume, was, a couple years ago, a couple years back. And so, I think it was actually probably, I think she said it was 2 years, because they talk about it at the end, and she's it was 2 years ago, and since, for 2 years I've been trying to get back on the right path and stuff. So, 2 years have passed since she lost her girlfriend to suicide, and it's it makes it even sadder that nothing's really happened. They kind of got busted because of the whole Jane thing, but they're still okay for now, and it's it just makes it a little bit sadder that she was so worried about them getting caught, and it's 2 years later now, and nothing's really happened. A huge scare, of course, but really nothing's happened, so it's just man, that makes it even sadder at the end. But I love the flashbacks. The main case itself was definitely entertaining, and we got some pretty cool moments. We got a lot of good team stuff, and that mostly kind of came towards the end of the episode through some comedy. But it was a nice, fun. I mean, all the episodes are pretty entertaining, but it was just a nice, fun episode. The characters, they worked together. It was, of course, Weller and Mayfair was the big dynamic of this mission, because it was. It was the first mission where Mayfair was actually a part of the team, so it's okay, this is different than it normally is. They have to go, not only are they dealing with police, where it's okay, a cop has been killed by some people, and here comes the FBI, and of course, as Mayfair put it, she wouldn't have used take over, which I thought was really nice. I thought it was funny when she said that. But they have this mission where they're taking over, a cop killing case. And then we have Mayfair, who's actually out in the field with the rest of the team. It's her and Weller having arguments back and forth. Weller is, of course he doesn't want to say anything to Jane, but he does have, little bits of conversation about it with her. So that was pretty cool. And then we get, constant twists, which I think is always really fun. So it's like, alright, it starts off as this guy. He's blackmailing a bunch of people. Turns out that that's not the case. He never extorted anyone. And he knew that someone was actually using his cams to blackmail other people, but he didn't want to say anything. He was freaked out. That caused him to get killed. So then they find out it's actually cops inside of it. And then we have the first woman who comes out. It's like, oh, she was, she didn't really know anything. And then it's just like, she's too much of a risk. So she got killed off. And then we find out who the two cops are. We have a crazy shootout at the house because they try to go and kill the first guy's wife. And so, crazy shootout. They take both of them down. Weller killed the one guy, but I'm pretty sure they just arrested the woman. So, that's taken care of. And then Mayfair is like, alright, it really sucks that this happened. And then we find out that the chief of police was working with them the whole time. And he outs himself because she never told him about the football player being gay. And so Mayfair has to crash a freaking car, which, in all honesty, the guy could have easily shot her if he really wanted to, because they had a ton of time before they crashed. He could have tried something, but TV stuff, I always tend to just be like, alright, I let it slide. But that was a crazy moment. He outed himself. It was like, crap, he's with them too. And then she has to crash this car, and I'm pretty sure he died. I don't believe they even really talk about it, but I'm pretty sure he's dead now. And she was messed up, and it's like, that was a crazy mission. We had a shootout in the house, flashbangs going off, because it's like people, both sides, were trained. So we got flashbangs going off. They're, trying to get the woman out of the house. They're just shooting up the house like crazy. And it was just a fun episode. It was like, Reed and Zapata didn't seem to have too much to do in this episode until towards the end. And it was mostly Zapata. Reed really didn't have much at all in this episode. I think he was mostly of course everyone always has their dialogue, but really he didn't have any really big moments in this episode like everyone else did. Even Patterson had probably, I guess because it was emotional, she kind of had a bigger moment than even Reed did in this episode, aside from sort of the joke when Jane is messing with him. And he did show, he was like, oh, both of you guys now, and he taps Jane, he's like, have a good night. That was a big deal for me. So that was probably my favorite moment of him in this episode, because it was he is officially cool with Jane, and she's a part of the team now. And I was like, that's really awesome. They didn't make a big scene out of it. We've already had a couple of big scenes with them together, so it was kind of cool. It was like, oh, that was just a nice subtle thing where it was like, you two have a good night, and he, took off. So that was a cool moment for him. But other than that, he was just in the mission. He was mostly involved in the chase scene because Kurt and Jane were the ones who really had all the action, especially in the ending, of course. But aside from the football, them chasing the football player, he wasn't really involved in it too much, really, outside of some dialogue here and there, and that was pretty much it. But it was definitely a good episode for the characters. I think the bar scene was definitely pretty cool because Jane got to go out and she talks about how it was good to have drinks with other people and stuff like that. And they have the scene with Patterson where she talks about, her boyfriend and all that, and they don't go into it, but it was just that happens. And then we get the scene with Zapata and Carter, and he's like, I own you for, what I did for you. You gave me, even though it was, useless information, you gave me information on your team and on Jane, and I gave you money in return, and now I own you. So she's got a lot of issues coming up, for sure. And that has me excited. I thought she kind of had it in control at first. She's like, I'm done with this. I gave you everything. I'm done. This is over. And I was like, oh, she took control of that. And then he kind of flipped it right around and was like, yeah, you gave me all of this. And if I told your team you did that, you wouldn't just be, losing friends and stuff. You'd be indicted and you'd be really messed up. So it's like, well, now she's got some major issues coming along. I kind of thought at first she was just flat out going to get attacked or something. That's what I was thinking. But I don't know what to expect from that. I mean, I don't like Carter like at all, because his whole thing is like, oh, I have to, we got to kill Jane. That's been his whole thing since he was introduced, and that's pretty much all his thing is going to be. Like we can already assume that, but I'm really looking forward to what takes place with Zapata. I don't know how crappy it's going to get for her, but I'm looking forward to seeing what they do. This was definitely an enjoyable episode. I liked the twist at the end where the captain was a part of it as well. I thought that was actually just a really cool little thing, because it was, I didn't even realize it, you know, when he said it. I just assumed when he mentioned that the football player was gay, I was like, you know, it didn't even occur to me. I was like, well, they could have easily just talked about that. They've been working together on this case for days now. You know, no big deal. And then it was like, oh, you screwed yourself because we never told you that that's why that happened. So I loved the nice little twist at the end there. Just the way that they kind of worked the case in general, because it seemed like they had their answer, and so they just had to figure out, you know, who the killer was. And it's like, oh, we have to. I thought it was going to be like, oh, we have to dwindle down who he was extorting and figure out who did it. And then it's like, no, he wasn't doing it at all. He was actually freaking out because he knew someone was using his cam footage, and that's why he actually got killed. And then, you know, the cops and everything. So definitely cool. Certainly some real life stuff. That was another thing that they had for Reed in the beginning when they were talking about like, you know, white cops killing black kids and stuff. I was like, this is probably like the most serious thing they've done, like real life stuff, even in the flashbacks, because of the NSA wiretapping stuff. This episode was like, these are like real life issues that are happening. Other stuff was just like, oh, crazy, you know, two crazy people want to infect the planet and kill off a bunch of humans. That may or may not have happened in real life. But you know, that's not typically on the news. NSA wiretapping, really huge thing. You know, kids being killed by cops for no good reason. Really big thing on the news. So I was like, okay, this episode is definitely tapping into some real life stuff. So that was kind of interesting, but certainly an enjoyable episode. Always looking forward to the next one with this show. We also got a really great scene with Weller actually sitting down with his father at the end of this episode. So that surprised me. It was just like, crazy day. Just, I need a drink and we can do it together. So I don't know what that means, but it's a huge step considering how he's acted towards the other episodes. This seems like a giant leap, for interacting with his father after all this time. But I love the episode, of course, though. Want to know what you guys thought, so please comment below. Let me know your favorite parts, your least favorite parts. And I want to know what you guys think is going to happen to Zapata. How far is this going to go? What information is she really going to be giving to Carter? In the promo, he does have like this really little camera that he once put in Jane's safe house. I don't know what he could possibly get from that really, but obviously he wants anything that he can get, so it makes sense that he'd never do that. But a camera's just the first step. He's still going to be like, talk to her and try to get some information this way or that way, trigger memories by doing this or that. And I feel like at some point he's just going to flat out try to tell her, you got to kill Jane. Like I feel like that's where it's going to head. It probably wouldn't happen really soon, but I feel like that's something he's going to have happen, or they're going to try to at least have him do it. I'm sure it wouldn't happen, but I feel like that's something they're going to have him say to Zapata, maybe like after the mid-season finale. It probably won't be like the second half of this season, but I want to know your speculations, how far things are going to go for Zapata, what you guys think, how it may or may not end. So please comment below, let me know, and thanks for watching.